Good morning. You're listening to FloorDaily.net, and I'm Kemp Harr. My guest is Mindy O'Gara, the Director of Product and Learning with Interface. Mindy, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
Now, I've caught you in Chicago. Most people know that NeoCon starts Monday morning, and I wanted to get a little preview for our listeners about what Interface is going to be talking about in Chicago. Before we get to that, though, a little background. You have been with Interface for 28 years. That's amazing. Started there in June of 95. Interface is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year, so you've been there for more than half of that, right?
That's right.
Before you started at Interface, you were an interior designer, so you've got good empathy towards your target audience, right?
Yes, I studied and practiced as a commercial interior designer. That's really equipped me well for the role that I'm in now at Interface, which is all around product education and helping people to understand the value of the materials we create.
One more little quick background piece. We just finished our June issue of Floor Focus, and on page 34, 36, and 52, we've got an overview of your business. You're number 2 in specified commercial carpet. The company's total revenue, $1.3 billion in sales. U.S. revenue at $700 million. These are all our estimates. Most people know you acquired Nora several years ago, and on the hard surface side, you do around $200 million. And as far as vertical sector focus, your strongest sectors that are performing well for you right now are education, corporate, retail, hospitality, and healthcare, right?
Correct. And then we also have our floor brand, which is originally was targeted for residential, but we actually use that well into many of the other segments as well.
Right. We've actually got that identified as being about $43 million in revenue with you guys. Of course, again, that's our estimate. All right. So let's get to the subject at hand. Tell us what's going on and what you're going to be showing your architect and designer friends in your space. And by the way, that space is across the street from the Mart, across from Well Street. And there's an L track there, so it's kind of a shady walk going from the Mart over to your space, right?
It is. We have several things that we're introducing at NeoCon this year that are going to span across our soft surfaces, which would be carpet, all the way over to our resilient surface with LVT as well as our rubber products. The thing that I like to talk to designers about is how our products can be used as true design tools that can help to create emotion or set a tone or attract a user. They can actually influence behaviors. And I'll tell you specifically how we're doing that. The first collection I'll tell you about is really a monumental carpet tile collection called Lost Palms. It features 9 styles, and the inspiration behind this particular collection comes from the desert landscape, very specifically the American Southwest. So it has this ability to really kind of create this mood. As I said, there's 9 different styles, but they're going to be broken into a few different categories. Many of them are going to fall into what we would call a stone category, where you're going to see these elements that feel like surface erosions and cracks or stone-like qualities. These are going to be really ideal for large-scale spaces because the visuals that they create are interesting to the eye, but they're not overpowering. They do well in large spaces. So this and it sets a tone that can be really beautiful as a backdrop to a space. But then also inside this collection are some specialty patterns and colors that are really going to draw people in. For instance, there's one style called Desert Ranch that has a very rugged kind of southwestern motif. So that's really going to set a certain mood or tone. We're also featuring 3 styles from Floor that are within this collection. So it's a really neat collaboration between our Interface brand and our Floor brand. And what the Floor styles are going to bring is, you know, a little bit more of a punched up feel when it comes to flair and attitude. And you'll see some mid-century influences. There are styles that have kind of a cool Palm Springs type of vibe. So these are great for adding punch to a space in an area rug, and they collaborate so well with the other more mainstay products that can be used in larger quantities. So that's a little bit about Lost Palms. And then when it comes to the next collection, we're moving into our resilient flooring, and we're going with a collection called Silk Complex. You know, LVT is one of our main categories. It's a great way to bring in a very high performance surface without bringing in a lot of the noise that a traditional hard surface would bring. LVT is going to have qualities that allow it to have some sound absorption. But what we're doing with Silk Complex is we're really elevating the LVT experience. This goes way beyond some of the typical patterns that you'll find in that category. You know, Lost Palms was a design from David Oakey with David Oakey Designs. And then when we get into Silk Complex LVT, this is going to move over to Carrie Pay and the Hive, which is our other designer in-house. And what they have done is just an amazing experience with LVT. It actually takes LVT into a new direction, and it brings in contrast and even embellishment through some metallic flaked patterning that really starts to make LVT have a higher end experience. There's actually 3 styles within the collection. The first one is called Shantung, which is a woven look, almost like a silk woven look. And then on the other extreme, you're going to have a style called Silk Age that is full of contrast and embellishment with these crystallized metallic flakes. And then right in between that, you've got a bridging style that we call it a transition tile that merges those 2 patterns together. And this allows people to create a beautiful flow of those elements across the 3. And the reason you might do something like this, we would call this a transitioning effect, not only to create visual interest on the floor, but designers use elements like color and transition and textures to construct focal points or to help create hierarchy within a space. And this is how you actually start to organize space. So what I love about these 2 collections, as well as some of the other things we're featuring, is they enable designers to really use the floor as a design tool to help them organize their space without even putting up walls. So that's a little bit about Lost Palms as well as Silk Complex.
You talked about at the beginning there, Mindy, about how flooring can bring an emotional experience. And I'd like to add, every time I walk into a Delta Sky Club and look down at the floor, I see a David Oakey design. They're in every one of the Sky Clubs. And it's that biophilia flowing river is kind of what it gives you the feeling of. I know exactly what you're talking about. Thanks for giving us a quick overview of a couple of the main features that you're presenting at NeoCon. Look forward to seeing you there. Again, by talking to Mindy O'Gara with Interface, and you can listen to Kemp Harr and FloorDaily.net.